So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to come to our panel, especially following the lunch hour. I know it's pretty difficult, but hopefully you had a chance to get some lunch. So my name is Ebony Lopez, and we are going to talk about empowering the student voice at the local level. I have some really good panelists here that are going to share their stories and also talk about how they are helping to lift up the student voice at their local colleges. So our list of panelists include Dr. Rowena Tomanang from San Jose City College, Dr. Angel Reyna from Madera Community College, our 116th college, by the way. Cheryl Aschenbach, who is Secretary for Academic Senate. And then we also have the Student Senate President, Stephen Kodur. So I want to start by taking you through the journey that the California Community College system has taken to address equity in our system. So all of this diversity, equity, and inclusion work began in 2018 when the Board of Governors was presented with a report from the Campaign for College Opportunity called Left Out. And in this report, it talked about the inequities in our system and the gaps as far as race and ethnicity of our students who have one of the most diverse populations in all of higher education, and comparing that to our faculty and staff. So once that report was introduced to the Board of Governors, from there they convened a task force. And that task force was charged with coming up with a set of recommendations to help diversify our faculty and staff. After about 6 months of going through the process, the task force set up 68 recommendations that they presented to the board. In 2019, the board unanimously approved those recommendations in what we call our integration plan. And so from there, the Chancellor's Office mobilized and put together a statewide implementation work group. That the work group included associations that were called out in the integration plan. So a couple of months after the work group was convened, as we all know, 2020 happened, and the COVID pandemic really put all of us in work from home, school from home, everything from home, right? With the exception of our essential workers. A few months after our first meeting of the work group, the murder of George Floyd happened. And this caused the Chancellor Oakley, to issue a call to action to our system that we can no longer wait for this work to happen. The integration plan called for the strategies to be completed in 1 to 2 years, but the Chancellor felt that that wasn't quick enough for our students. And so he issued a call to action and said that the 68 recommendations, we would need to speed it up. So for the tier 1 strategies, we have 6 months to 1 year, and we're coming up on the 1 year mark in about 3 months to have those strategies done. You guys are represented by Catherine Squire, who's our moderator on the implementation work group, but the students didn't take a second to wait for the system to move. You guys mobilized quickly, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. So part of the recommendations that the task force introduced in their report, it provided a lot of data that we already knew. Our system is primarily composed of white faculty, and our students represent a large portion of color. I mean, if you look at the statistics here on this slide, 73% of our students are students of color. 72% of our academic senate presidents are white. And that just speaks to the need of why we needed to diversify our faculty and staff. Students need to be able to see themselves in their professors and in an academic setting to help them achieve their goals, and much more. So oftentimes when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, people often confuse equality and equity. And I really like showing this image because it shows you the difference, right? While equality sounds like everything is equal, right? And it's not. Some people have different starting points. So equity really takes into account that people have different starting points and we need to uplift them so that we all reach the same goal, which for us is student success. So the Board of Governors adopted 3 recommendations in 2019 to move this work forward. First, they accepted the 68 recommendations, as I mentioned, that were provided by the task force. Then they also proposed that we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement to reflect the diverse students and faculty that we would like to see in our system. And I'll drop a link to that statement later on. Then from there, we submitted a budget proposal to help us mobilize this work. We had a mentorship program that was approved, but that was prior to COVID-19 happening. We continue to advocate for more funds for our students to help us diversify our faculty and staff, and that's not something that we're going to stop just because of the pandemic. So I wanted to provide you with a copy of the Chancellor's call to action that he issued in June of 2020. So beyond just the work of the DEI task force, he also called for things like police reform. A lot of the police and a lot of the police that go out into the field are actually trained in our system at some of our colleges. And this is the opportunity for us to change that curriculum to reflect the diversity in our system. So as I mentioned before, when the Chancellor issued his call to action, the students didn't wait for all of us to mobilize and get the politics and set them to the side. You guys immediately went into action. And I wish I can put everything that you guys did on a slide, but I just want to start with the student plan of action, which came out, I want to say about a month after the Chancellor issued his call to action, which is very quickly. And in that plan of action, you guys listed 5 things that you wanted to see happen, 5 main areas, right? And that's fostering an anti-racist campus, equity training for faculty and staff, inclusive curriculum, and that includes the ethnic studies component, peer mentors and alliances, and anti-racist classroom experiences. And from there, you took an approach that said, you know what, we're going to keep going with this and we're going to elevate our voices. So I want to discuss a little bit of how SSCCC really mobilized around these efforts to get this work going. So you hosted a series of town halls, which were very impactful for our system. Students were able to tell their experiences of racism and inequity in the classroom. And those experiences have actually helped shape the work that we're doing in the implementation work group. And then you also created a subcommittee within the SSCCC Executive Committee. So you have your People of Color Task Force that is handling these issues and moving this work forward, along with the entire Executive Committee at SSCCC. You've also seen an increased number of student engagement in webinars, which has been extremely helpful. The student voice is so powerful. We can talk all day about reform, about things that need to be done, but your voice, that is what people need to hear. And I have definitely noticed in webinars and conferences, there's a student on every panel, in every webinar, and that really speaks to the experiences that are happening at our colleges. So I just want to call that out and thank you for that. And also, you've engaged in a bunch of advocacy for our system and on behalf of our system at the legislature, with our statewide organizations, with statewide stakeholders, really elevating your voice as well. I could go on and on bragging about the things that students have done. It's really been a tremendous effort. And when we say we have the best students in higher education, we really mean that. The way that our students are able to mobilize and take this message and elevate it to the next level is incredible. So thank you all for your leadership. And I just want to leave you with one lasting quote. So leadership is not a position or a title. It is an action, an example. So while you may not have a title just yet, don't think that being a student is not enough. Your voice matters, and your voice is what helps us keep going. And your voice is what helps change policies. So keep using your voice. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rowena Tomaning, who's going to share her story with us.
Thank you so much, Ebony, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're staying mentally healthy during what continues to be an emotionally challenging time. I want to say that it's really a privilege for me when I have the opportunity to share space with students. And even this morning in my district town hall about the fall reopening, I talked about how I was so excited that I was going to get to share and be in conversation at the student plenary today. So thank you so much. And I want to also say that on behalf of our statewide CEO board, as well as our CEO Racial Equity and Inclusive Task Force, that we are all here to support you in your efforts at implementing your anti-racism plan of action. And as Ebony mentioned, we were inspired because you were ahead of us in terms of implementing some of the call to action plans related to DEI. So fostering an anti-racist campus, equity training, inclusive curriculum, peer mentors and alliances, anti-racist classroom experiences. Your 5 goals have been my goals for the 25 years I've been in the California community colleges. And through all of the roles I've had, from a faculty member in English, ethnic studies, and women's studies, the director of community and civic engagement, and my management roles at De Anza College, Berkeley City College, and now at San Jose City College, the work that you're doing, that you are setting out to do, has been my passion and my deep commitment. So why am I committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because of my lived experience as a first-gen Filipina immigrant, and throughout my schooling in California public schools from K through 12, community college, and in my UC experience, I've been othered this entire time, that I didn't belong, felt like I didn't belong because of my ethnicity and race. So this is why DEI is so important to me in terms of progressing in this work. Now, I felt this way because when I was little as an immigrant, other kids made fun of my accent and they called me fresh off the boat, which I didn't know what that was because I just remembered that I had got off a plane from the Philippines. Later, when I was in college, I learned then that came about because of the stereotype and the negative references to Vietnamese refugees from the Vietnam War, fleeing militarization and violence of the war. I also felt like I didn't belong because my culture and community wasn't represented in any of the curriculum And I didn't learn anything about Asian American and Pacific Islander Latinos, Latinas until I transferred to UC Irvine from Cypress College, where in the early 1990s, they started developing ethnic studies programs. And I think it was there at UC Irvine that because there was some content being given to me in my major, that my consciousness was raised. And it was, I look at that as a political awakening for me. But even then, I didn't have any teachers or professors that looked like me. And when I transferred, when I graduated and then was admitted to a doctoral program at UC Santa Barbara, that's the first time that I had an African American professor, Chicano professor, and one Asian American professor. And that was a big department there as well. And so while I had a few professors that I could identify with, I still encountered othering and racist attitudes about students of color. We were expected to assimilate into the white normative culture of academia. We were asked to use different languages to abandon the voice that we came in with. We were asked to value research and scholarship, that were predominantly Eurocentric and male. And as a result, I ended up leaving the program because the white male faculty, Americanist in American literature, said that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't know how to write, that I didn't know how to use the language of academia. And so they imposed additional courses that were not part of the sequencing of the program. So what happened to me? I felt imposter syndrome. I started questioning myself that I wasn't working hard enough. Two, I was emotionally traumatized by the experience. And worse yet, my faculty of color, who were not full professors yet, felt like that they couldn't quite adequately protect me. And so I didn't understand what their positionality was. And so they told me to just stay strong and go ahead and take the class, the extra classes. But I couldn't do it because I was pissed off. I had so much anger and it was just so unfair because I was working so hard. I was like working part-time and taking my classes, doing conferences, etc., but still I wasn't good enough. So I made the decision to leave, and fortunately for me, I had my master's degree in hand and I started teaching in the California community colleges, and that changed my life. But even then, it took me about 4 years to get over the trauma. And so, fast forward, I'm a faculty member, first Filipina faculty member to get hired at De Anza College. I was hired into the English department. And during the tenure review process, I was again othered. I was questioned for teaching multicultural content and teaching political content and starting to do campus organizing work with my colleagues and with students advising student clubs. And then I even had a member of my tenure review committee put in my evaluation, and question that I was teaching social issues, contemporary social issues. And I said, why wouldn't I be teaching contemporary social issues? The class is linked to a grassroots organizing democracy class. I'm just teaching the course content and the objectives of the class. And so again, as a result, I felt as a faculty woman of color, I wasn't well supported during the tenure track process, but I survived it. I came out stronger. And it's because I had a few, those who came before me. I had a faculty mentor, one of the first African-American male faculty members to be hired by the college. I had a white ally, co-conspirator, a feminist LGBTQ faculty member who was there already. And then I had a couple of other people in student affairs. And that community became my community in which I could thrive in the institution after I got tenure and then do the work of DEI. So I tell you this story because it is still happening today. The experiences that I've had all of my life as a student of color are still happening. And many of our students in our California community college system are being othered, on a daily basis. And as Ebony said, the research tells us that this is why we're not meeting our equitable outcomes, that why we're not succeeding. And so it's for this reason that, I am so excited about the collaboration that we're doing with the DEI implementation work group, and that our student leaders, student voice is so strong. And again, you are ahead of many of the other statewide associations in this work. And I want to just close by saying, please count on me to always support you. I am very active supporting student voice on my own campus and in my previous campuses, and just reach out and let me know how I could further help and implement your plans of action. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, Rowena. That takes a lot of courage. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to some of the experiences that you mentioned. Next, I want to turn it over to Stephen so that he can talk a little bit about his experience as a student leader and also his experience of serving on hiring committees, which is something that the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors, in partnership with our students, have been pushing for to help increase the diversity of our faculty and staff. So Stephen, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Ebony. Hello, everyone. Welcome. You probably got enough of me earlier, but you get to see me again. So congratulations to you. I just want to give a little background of myself. So right now, yes, I'm the president of the Student Center for California Community Colleges. I am a student at Reedley College, which is in the middle of the Central Valley, nestled in between Fresno and Visalia. But I'm actually not a Central Valley. I guess I wasn't born and raised in the Central Valley. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, East Bay boy. I'm from Hayward. My parents moved me the middle of my senior year to this little agriculture town of Dinuba, which is super small, 1/10 the size of the town that I grew up in. And making that change and having to adapt and things like that, I really never felt like I found my place, right? I didn't know how my voice could really be heard. Trying to find my place. My parents were, I was a first-gen college student. My parents had never attended college. My mom actually had me at 15, so she was a single mother for a couple years before she met my dad. My dad is actually a immigrant from India. He moved here when he was 10 years old. So he was the youngest of 9 children, and they all moved at one time to come to the States. So my parents really had no idea what college was about. And when I got into college, I really had no idea what college was about, right? So I had to try and find my place, and eventually I worked my way into student government. And I really used it when I first came in as more of a networking, right? Like I'm just here to meet new people and do stuff like that. But then when I started getting involved more is when I saw that when you effectively use your voice for change, things happen, right? Like you can really see that you can make differences on your campus that will last for a while. And if you've heard me serve on panels before, I've given my little spiel of how I think about community college students. I say that we're like farts in the wind. We come in, we make a big stink, and we're gone. So I want to make sure that we are here and we're making a lasting impression for those that come after us, because I had the greatest one of the greatest accomplishments this last semester in enrolling my mom into community college. My mom's actually coming back to college. She's trying to do that, and I know that I experienced barriers in my education with, food insecurity, housing insecurity. I literally couch surfed for my whole first semester at Reedley College because I couldn't afford, to pay rent. I rode a longboard to school. Didn't didn't ride the bus because I couldn't afford the $1.50 every day to do that. So I rode a longboard for about 6 miles just to, get to school. My whole first semester, I took all OER classes because I couldn't afford the cost of a textbook. Because yes, my tuition was free, but the textbook wasn't, and all the materials that came with it. Lived off the food pantry. So all of these things, these barriers to my education, I wanted to make sure that there were um, the institution was there and in place to help those students that need those, right? So when I came into student government, I wanted to elevate that and elevate the student voice and make sure that those practices were there for students. And leaving it for my mom who's coming after me, for my little sister that's going to be, enrolling into community college again, for all of these students. And one of the things that I've seen the most is serving in hiring committees, because you are effectively, in the anti-racism plan, we're trying to foster an anti-racist climate, right? On our campuses, we want to practice DEI on our campuses. We're trying to be more inclusive. Yet everywhere that I turned, it felt like the student voice wasn't completely heard, right? You serve in committees, and sometimes when you serve in a committee, you as a student are kind of like the learner, right? You're not really the equal person on that board. You're just kind of there to watch. Even I served as student trustee last year, and there were times where I just felt kind of like the token student that was just kind of paraded there, right? That would just sat there, and the board policy that states that student trustees are full members of the board. However, I didn't feel like a full member of the board at times. There was one time during my time on my board where I asked uh, I asked why students were a part of the hiring committees, just more of a question. And hey, are we looking into something like that? The very next day, I got about 3 phone calls from the union presidents. What are you doing? Like, what's going on here? How does that even work? And to me, as a student leader, isn't um, just because something isn't being practiced doesn't mean it's wrong, right? You can turn over new leaves. You can see that some of these things are actually good. And what ended up happening of this is I started serving on hiring committees. Hiring committees are a tough gig, let me tell you. You go through files and files and files on different candidates for the position. You have to rank them, and then you do usually interview about 8 different people, about an hour interview. That's an 8 hour day, right? And for a student, taking an 8 hour day to interview these people, that's a full day of work you missed. That could be a full day of school that you missed. So for a student serving on a hiring committee, it has a lot of blessings coming, because now you were choosing who that person is, or who that person is going to be on your campus, right? That might be the Title V coordinator that's making decisions for your campus. That might be the dean of a certain department. And to have that lens of that student perspective lens, it's really critical. So we worked with the chancellor's office on getting out a memo that kind of was actually was a legal opinion that says, you know what, the students serving on hiring committees, it's not illegal. It can happen. It should be happening. And if there are practices in place that don't allow for a student to be in that process, then that goes against the vision for success, right? That goes against our call to action to elevate student voices. Because if you're not serving or not having a student serve in that capacity, then we aren't elevating those student voices, and we're not saying that those students are an equal member of that campus and really a constituent group that needs to be represented. So it can be tough. We're still working with the chancellor's office um, and some other parties on working on possibly getting students some compensation just for being there, because students are the only ones that serve in these capacities. Students and part-time faculty are the only ones that serve in these capacities and aren't compensated, right, for their time. So I know that it can be tough, but you're really leaving a legacy for those behind you by sitting in those committees, by sitting in that hiring process, and really elevating that student voice. So.
Ebony, we do have a question. Would you like to take it now, or do you want to wait till the end of the presentation?
We can go ahead and take it now. I have a question
Okay.
we're going to be asking soon, but we can go ahead and take it now. Yeah.
Okay, great. And maybe Stephen, you want to jump in on this one. It seems more student-centered, but there's one question in the chat, and the question is, as student reps, we are constantly working to address inequity and violation of student rights. Sometimes that work upsets people who have become comfortably negligent, willfully obstructive, or who are innocently but implicitly contributing to the problem. In the worst of these cases, student leaders can end up targeted by blatant retaliatory behaviors. How does a student representative navigate such a situation? Who can we go to for help?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. So specifically on my campus, this was an issue because there was really no grievance process that was established. We've worked over this past year for a student to really be able to speak up, right? Students usually the narrative of a community college student is you go to class and you go home, right? We don't have that quote unquote university feeling where we hang out on campus and do all these other things. So most community college students that I had talked to really had no idea that, one, there's a student government that even exists. What do I do when I have a complaint, and where do I go? So all of those things are things that we need to actively research, and really, your student government is there to represent your voice. You should have a grievance process. I would definitely go to your college and really make sure that that is visible for students. I've been working with the president of my college to make sure that that gets sent out through Canvas now. It's visible on our webpage, so students can really be able to voice those inequities that are happening on the campus, and really, the barriers to their education, right? Like that can be a barrier to your education if you don't feel included on campus, if you feel targeted as a student. So you really need to speak up, because if you don't use your voice, then that situation can continue to happen, right? And that situation can happen for students after you. I've talked with so many different student leaders this year, and I always end when I'm done talking with them and saying, thank you for using your voice, because I would not have known about the situation had you not told me, right? I would not have known what was going on your campus. So really, you need to elevate your voice. Go to your student government. Your student government definitely can push you in the right direction on what dean you need to talk to, who's in charge of that area, and really where you need to go to eliminate that problem. I don't know if any of the other panelists have any other insight.
Just to add on to what you were saying, I know that the student grievance process is something that our student representative on the implementation work group brought to us as something that's imperative for students, right? Because if you've experienced a racial microaggression, you're not going to want to go to this. You're not going to want to go to the same people that caused this treatment, right? There's a fear for students that their grade will be impacted, or their educational careers will be impacted by this. So I do know that our implementation work group, being led by the students, the associations are working on a student grievance process so that students do have the opportunity to report those kind of things. Not sure if anyone else wants to jump in as well before we move to the next question.
I just wanted to just underscore Stephen's point about the self-advocacy. And, I think what's difficult is for many institutions, the communication, and this is what, my students have been telling me recently, that there is a lot of communication, but it's in so many different places. that it's very confusing how to locate, certain protocols and processes. And so, and then when Ebony talked about this fear of, retaliation, that somehow the grade is going to be impacted, when students have a concern, I have definitely experienced that, even especially during COVID, and a group of students, actually students in 2 classes, didn't know who that they can go to raise the concerns because we went into remote operations. And it ended up that they contacted a member of the faculty union who was teaching in another class. And so my faculty member then advocated for the students, and she brought, the concerns to me, which then I kept very confidential, and then looped in my director of campus life, who actually is the point person, for handling uh, formal student grievances. But again, we need to do better in terms of making sure that we have consistent communication and making sure that the information is easily found for students.
I would just echo that trying to have an ally that can help you within the institution to help you navigate, I think is important, whether it's a faculty member, a counselor, or someone within student activities, because sometimes we as leaders are unaware of what's taking place, and being able to present that information to us then can get us or provide awareness for us to then to be able to address the issue, because we do have those situations, unfortunately, that are taking place. I recall in my previous role as Vice President of Instruction, the way our current policies are structured, they favor faculty versus students in complaints. So I would tell students, there's decisions that I make all the time that I don't necessarily agree with, but we have to follow the current policies and procedures that are in place. So I think that's, and we'll talk a little bit during my segment piece on the importance of policies and procedures and how that impacts our students on our campus.
And I'll jump in real quickly and speak to, as Dr. Reyna just said, the importance of finding that ally, a classified member, someone who works in an office that you've had contact with and feel there's some degree of trust or comfort, or a faculty member that you've worked with in the classroom, or even another student. They may have a better sense of who to reach out to next and who would be most effective in communicating your concerns or your situation to administration or management or anybody else on campus who can help to remedy that or provide you some backing. And so really seeking out, who do you have a level of comfort with, to go there. Absolutely develop those allies through each of your contacts on campus, and it really can be anybody.
And Cheryl, that's actually a great segment into handing things over to you. I'm going to try and get back to this question, but in the essence of time, I want to make sure to give everyone a chance to speak. So Cheryl, I'm going to hand it over to you to discuss the partnership that happens between faculty and students.
Thank you, Ebony. Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Aschenbach. I am an English and public speaking professor at Lassen College in far northern California, and I'm very proud to serve as secretary for the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. I consider myself a student advocate, and on my small campus, I've done what I can to try to lift student voices in a space that's not always easy for students to lift their voices. And so, really want to share with you the fact that we, as the state level, the Senate appreciates the work that the Student Senate has done. And as Dr. Tummening said earlier, the Student Senate led the way last fall in setting their plan of action, their own call to action. And, some of that absolutely impacts faculty. And we hadn't gotten to that point of making broader statements and really demanding of our faculty that we take action. We had work going on in the background, but so impressive that the Student Senate spoke up and spoke loudly. And those words, that plan has served as an inspiration for the work that we continue to do as faculty to support the student interests and the student needs. things like anti-racist campus cultures. Faculty play a big part of that. We can partner with students to help advance that and help to create the brave spaces within the classroom and within the offices and the space on campus. We absolutely can hear what you say and know we're trying to change internally as well, that our curriculum has to be inclusive. But to hear students say it creates a much greater impetus, a much greater sense of urgency. And so, the voice of the students is so important. And I know Stephen mentioned earlier, sometimes it may feel like the student voice is just present because it's supposed to be. Keep speaking up. When you speak up with value and you repeat the message that you have and center the student experience, you will get others to center the student experience with you and to really believe in what they're doing and what you're doing. And so locally, if you haven't connected with your local academic Senate leaders, I encourage you to, just as I encourage local Senate leaders to reach out to their student Senate counterparts. We may have focuses that at times are very different, or may even on occasion conflict. But when it comes down to it, we as faculty exist to work alongside you in the classroom and create learning spaces that advance us all. And so when we have the opportunity to work and to further an interest and to further some actions alongside the local senates, the student senates locally as well as statewide, as well as knowing that your local Senate leaders, your academic Senate leaders may have, I hope, more experience navigating some of the intricacies of governance at your campus and may have things to share about how to do that most effectively and most easily, perhaps. And anytime we can have the students speak up in a committee meeting with the board even, and have the Senate say, we're with them, like we're behind them on this, we're working on this together. It's incredible how far we can take things. And so, really encourage you to ally with your local senates. And, we are fortunate with the state academic senate that Stephen or the president at the time or a representative joins us for every one of our executive committee meetings and has a report as well as the opportunity to contribute to the dialogue. And we get to learn then what's going on with the Student Senate. What are your priorities? How might we partner in some of your work around those priorities? And I think that's a great model for what you can aim to do locally. And as I said, really looking to continue to promote with academic senates that they do some reach out to you. But if that's not happening, do the reach out to them, lead the way. And then I'd also say that in terms of doing this diversity, equity, inclusion work and just really supporting and lifting others, as students do exactly that, support and lift others. You may be involved because you are a little bit more outspoken or confident, or someone else boosted you. Play a role in boosting somebody else. That silenced person, on Zoom in your class, or ideally someday sitting next to you in class again, may have just as much to say and care as much about the work that you're doing as you do. Let them know what you're up to. Invite them into the space, encourage them and lift them. As Stephen pointed out, we see new leaders every year or two. And so the more you can do to nurture leadership within your own student body, the stronger your local voice will be. So really just want to encourage that message. We can do so much together, but really appreciate and respect and value the student voice.
Awesome. I'm silently snap clapping at all of the, feels for you right now, Cheryl. That was awesome, and definitely appreciate your comments. I'm going to keep the conversation moving, and I think where you started talking about the power of the student voice, I think it's important for students to see what that looks like. What does that relationship look like when campus leaders really partner with their students? And so with that, I am going to keep us moving and pass it over to Dr. Reyna, who actually has a student from his campus here with him. So Dr. Reyna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ebony. I appreciate it. As mentioned, my name is Angel Reyna, and I'm the proud president of Madera Community College, the newest community college in the state system. Go Mountain Lions. I'm also honored to not only serve the students at my institution, but also represent the students at my institution. I have a similar background to my students, and I believe that's very important. I'm a migrant farm worker. I grew up in the Yakima Valley as I mentioned, as a migrant farm worker. And I was intentional about when I applied at Madera Community College. I came down here, I looked, I researched the institution and saw that it was predominantly Hispanic, Latinx identified student body, very rural, agricultural, migrant farm worker community, which was close to my heart. And so I was intentional about applying here. And that matters. And I tell people why that matters, because as you know, Dr. Rowena Tamanang mentioned, you get othered by your leadership and other folks that don't understand you and don't know who you are. And that's why, you know, this DEI work is so important, when you can get folks that reflect and represent the students that you serve at all levels, because you have a greater understanding of who you're serving and the challenges and barriers and structures that are in their way. And I just wanted to preface all this context because it matters as I, you know, attempt to do the work at Madera Community College to center the student voice, because it's critically important. Because what we've done as institutions of higher education has not worked for students of color. It continues to not to work, right? That's why, as Ebony demonstrated earlier, you know, this is the work we've been trying to do. We're trying to do this, and it needed to have happened, you know, decades, if not centuries ago, right? And so the sense of urgency was yesterday, right? And so as we move towards this work, we have obstacles, we have challenges, because change is not easy, and giving up power is not easy either. And I won't go into too much detail there because it's very complex and complicated, right? It's, if you're the dominant culture, you do not want to give up what you have to others, right? And so that's why I think this work is critically important for us and for you as students. And this anti-racism plan is so critically important. You don't know how important that was. And I shared this with the Student Senate Executive Board 2 weeks ago when I presented to them, because then when I'm doing my work at my institution, I say, well, this is what the students need and this is what they've stated. And I can reference that plan, right? It's not like, well, this is what Angel Reyna wants, who identifies as a migrant farm worker, Latinx. That's what he wants because he's being selfish and all he wants to do is X, Y, Z, right? Now it's like, no, we're centering the student. This is what students are saying. And so please know that the work you've done and continue to do is critically important. And it is the work that you do is influencing the work we do at our institutions. And as I shared, you know, with President Kudur, the great work that we're doing and how we're infusing the work that comes from the students is very powerful. So please continue that great work. Having said that, you know, when we look at, you know, how do we center the student voice? How do we empower student voice on our campus? And if it's not the CEO, then who, right? And I think to President Kudur's point of having students on interview panels is critically important, because your voice should matter in the process, because at the end of the day, we exist to serve you. And I try to communicate that to our students. The only reason I'm a president, the only reason I have a job is because of you. And we need to flip the script of, no, you know, I'm the faculty member, I'm the sage on the stage, and, you know, I control the classroom, I control X, Y, Z. We need to be able to change that culture. And obviously it takes time, but you are the reason why that change will occur. If you continue to sit on the sidelines, then the change will be slow, if at all. But if you take center stage, this change will occur at a much rapid pace. So having said that, some of the things that I've done, and I'll be very brief because I want to make sure that our student can speak, is, you know, when I have board of trustee meetings, I'm in a 4-college district, I give up my time to our students. I say, you have my report in our documents. You don't need me to go through it. Here are students, they're the ones that you want to hear from anyway. So I give up my time to the students. I also have pizza with the president with students. And that's where I learned the most of what's going on in my institution. Students were telling me, here are the transportation issues that we have. Here are the issues that are taking place on campus. And I was able to make changes because even on a Saturday, we have Saturday and evening classes. I'll just give a quick example. I showed up, a whole class came, which was great. We had about 60 students. And they told me, so, hey, you know, we're here taking a biology class pretty much all day. The cafeteria is closed. Even if we bring our own food, there is no microwave. So how do you expect us to eat here when we're here all day? Like, I didn't even know, right? So what I did the next weekend is I had somebody buy microwaves, put them around, open the cafeteria. So your voice matters. I think we as CEOs need to do a better job of opening or providing spaces for students to voice those pieces, because if we don't know, it's hard for us to make changes. And I'm not, you know, placing blame elsewhere. It's my responsibility to do that, to provide those spaces to learn and grow. And so one of the things that I learned quickly as well at the institution is we have our associated student government, which is doing great work, but how do we also increase the voice on our institution? And I met with this group, the Youth Leadership Institute. They said, hey, we have student advocacy councils right now that are working in K-12. We haven't done this at a community college. Are you interested? And I said, yes, I am. And I met with some students a few weeks actually right before we sheltered in place. And Avery Cordero, who's going to speak here shortly, was part of that group. I said, okay, what's this about? You know, give me a little bit more information, because I wanted to get an understanding. And they shared with me the great work that they're doing, and it's focused on capacity building, policy change, et cetera, which is needed at our institutions, because as I mentioned before, you know, if the policies are X, Y, Z, I'm bound by either, if I'm a vice president or president, to follow those policies, and they may not be the policies we need or want at our institutions at this moment, right? To better serve our students, and more specifically, our students of color. So having said that, that's kind of got us going. In the summer, we had training with our faculty and staff. And this is where the ally piece came important. And part of the Youth Leadership Institute is they won't provide that training unless you have allies on your campus that are going to take the training alongside the students. And you know, as the question that was asked before, how do you navigate higher ed as a student if you're being targeted or retaliation, et cetera? Well, this group is intentionally placing allies with the students in the advocacy council to advocate for them and provide resources for them, because policy change requires data, requires knowledge of the institution, et cetera. And so we did that during the summer. We're doing a refresher again that should wrap up next week, that then will allow us to kick this off in the fall in full swing. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Avery Cordero, who's our student. She's a dual enrollment student, and she's going to share the great work that she's done at Madera Unified, specifically Madera High School, and then what could it look like at a community college. So Avery.
Okay, hello. I couldn't unmute for a second, but hello everyone. My name is Avery Cordero. I am actually a senior at Madera High School. So I am 17 years old, and I have partaken in 26 panels where we work with adult allies to implement policies and hopeful change on their campuses. But adult allies is something that I say more often than other things people my age say. Like I said, I'm 17. I've had to have the conversation of where I'll be attending college next year. As all of my friends go off to the 4 years and whatnot, I've elected to stay local. I live in Madera, and I've chosen Madera Community because we are bringing the student action plan to that campus. That was the main deciding factor. I've been given scholarships to out-of-state locals, and I've chosen to stay in Madera, attend Madera Center. I will be playing golf for Reedley College though next year, but Student Advocacy Council is something that I hold very deeply personal. I tell so many people about it, but I've been a part of the council on my high school's district for about 2 years this upcoming August. And I have been so fortunate to make so many friends, adult allies, even people I can look forward to that I can depend on that can get me further. But I stay associated with this program because our mission and visions can be effective now and 20 years down the road. Like I said, and Dr. Reyna also said, the Youth Leadership Institute plays a major role. I am also an elected youth commissioner for the city of Madera. I worked with our city council, but I would like to share our mission statement. So this year's mission statement is a little different than last year's because of what has been going on, but our mission is to use the power of youth voice by working with adult allies to address community issues and bring social justice to our society, while also prioritizing mental health and self-respect. And our vision for this year has been the SAC will establish a community of individuals who will always respect others and their opinions, who will love everyone freely, and will provide a safe space for others. We focus on our mission and vision so much because that's where we get our inspiration from. We take what's going on in our society, but also in our local communities, and provide action plans. Last school year, before we sheltered in place, we partaked in a study of the safety in Madera, specifically traffic safety. We proposed to the city of Madera and our district of implementing new parking lots, adding stop signs or crosswalks. And since then, our plan has been 60% effective with being online. And as I was a junior then, so I was amazed, but that kind of opened my eyes to what SAC can bring to campuses. We also participated in a district study that focused on African American students in our school district. We provided evaluations, we did focus groups with students, parents, teachers, administration, and we found that we have a big issue with racism in our district. And since then, we have, I don't know what the specific numbers are, but we met back with the people who participated in the last groups before everything sheltered in place via Zoom, and 97% have said that they have seen a change and they are proud to be associated with our district and are proud to say that adult allies have supported them in unimaginable ways. And that is something, that's one of the most things I've been proud to share with others, because that is something that is necessary when it comes to education. You must have your allies as your support system. Education is very different now, and it will become more evolutionary as we go on. But you can probably tell I like to talk about this stuff. I plan on majoring in communications or political science. So this is kind of my go-to. And like I said, I'm 17. Most of my friends are going to the mall. I spend all my time just this. This is my life as a 17-year-old. This is what I plan on doing. But implementing mental health has been our main priority for this school year. With online learning, it has affected so many people in so many different ways. And now that we're having the option to attend in-person school, you would think more people would want that. But we had less than half want to go back to campus, and we looked at it from every perspective we can imagine, and there's reasons that you wouldn't even think of. So that has forced us to step into their shoes and create some platform to provide them support if they're in the classroom or doing school from their bedrooms. So we have sent out surveys to over 300 students, and from kindergarten to 12th grade, and the responses are so rewarding, but they make you just comprehend things that you never thought a 8-year-old or a 14-year-old would have to take on. We've received many emails from counselors thanking us for just acknowledging the topic, even if we didn't execute our plan. And I feel proud to disclose this, but something I keep private when we talk about it is we had 14 individuals asking for help, whether it was self-harm or struggling with mental health. And since then, 13, I believe, have sought help. And those issues were not known of. And I'm very proud, and I support the idea of adult allies and youth allies, and just any relationship we have with human to human is a lifesaver, especially in unknown times like it is now. So I share the idea of social justice and mental health and communication. Those are the three things that basically drive my everyday kind of thing. But I share the idea of social justice in any idea or form, but I encourage the adult allies on any and all campuses, whether it's a preschool to a four-year to even a JC. It is needed on any campus or even any facility or building. I'm at a country club. I'm not at my house right now. I'm playing golf, and we've implemented these policies at a country club. And just the idea of posting mental health services in the locker rooms, the smallest thing can support any individual in any way. If it just brings a smile to their face once a day, or even it provides a safety service, the outcome is better than what it could have resulted in if they didn't see that possible message. And that's the idea of SAC or the Youth Leadership Institute, or even an idea of a campus where there is community. We must have adult allies. We must have youth support, whether it is temporary or via Zoom in the chat. That is what is going to drive our change. And from recent events, the whole world has seen these actions, and there's a known term as the good is yet to come. But in my opinion, it's here. It's been here. Adult allies in partnership with young adults. I'm very proud to be a part of this generation. And even though these times are very uncertain, I am more excited to see where everything will go with the drive, determination, and confidence that our society is bringing to any and all conversation, whether it's around the table or in a panel like today. I share the idea of social justice, adult allies, because whether we realize it or not, we all need it, and it will better our everyday life and long-term life and future lives to come. So I hope I kind of covered, I had lots of notes. I hope I covered some of it, but I think I'll pass it back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Avery.
Avery, that was amazing. I wish I had your skills at your age. I think you're making all of us reflect. But thank you so much for sharing your story. You are an example that the California Community College system has top talent, and elevating those voices, you embody all of that. So I know we're coming close to time. I want to give our panelists I want to say thank you so much to everyone that has joined us, and thank you specifically to our panelists who are taking time out of their day. Thank you, Avery, for taking time out of your day to join us. I want to give you guys a second to do kind of an elevator pitch of lasting words to leave our students with before we end our panel. So Stephen, we'll start with you since you're a student, and like Angel said, that's the reason why we're here, right?
Yeah, definitely. And Avery, thanks for that. Communications and political science, do them both. I put it in the chat. That's what I majored in. So it's definitely possible. Go for it. But just some lasting or some comments to leave you with before you leave. What was said on here, there was a common theme that a lot of people were saying, and that's finding your allies. And as students, that's a very, very positive thing. It's going to be your probably most beneficial thing to do on your campus. As Cheryl was saying earlier, I go to the academic senate, the executive committee meetings, And that kind of inspired me to get more involved with my own academic senate on my campus. You know, we had a good relationship, but not what could have been. So I started meeting with them. Now I have a standing agenda item on their academic senate meeting, which is huge because as students, faculty are going to be one of your biggest allies, right? Because faculty want to see you succeed, because if you're succeeding, they're succeeding, right? So you know, that reflects on them. So with faculty, one of the biggest things that we did is, you know, I pitched them my farts in the wind comment and said, hey, student leaders, we're here and we're gone, we're here and we're gone, but faculty still remains there on the campus. So the academic senate is now going to come in every year and do a training for the associated student government every year to be able to talk to them about what participatory governance is and why it's important that they are there. And in talking with them, we've actually established that in every committee, you know, the student government needs to be in all of these committees, right, to be there for participatory governance. Well, guess what? Now we have what we call student mentors. So there's one faculty member, it's either the chair or someone that's in there that's going to mentor the one student that's in that committee with them. So that means, you know, sending them updates. Hey, are you ready for this meeting? Is there anything that I can help you with? That kind of stuff. So the student comes in more prepared. So, you know, it's finding those allies on your campus to be able to help you in your fight for equity, in your fight for, you know, whatever it is, student success. So make sure you find those allies. You know, faculty are great, you know, other students are great, your administration's great. Just make sure that you elevate that voice, whatever it is that's going on your campus. Make sure you speak to those issues, and definitely get involved with the SSCCC. That's why we're here, right? When your voice gets elevated, and we can make that into statewide issues and make sure that all students are succeeding. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I'll keep it brief. Continue to lead the way and we will follow.
I'll add, just be persistent. Keep your voice going, and the allies will show up, sometimes from really unexpected places, but keep voicing what you need and what you want.
And I'll just add and keep it simple too, that you are powerful, own your power, and work together.
I just want to thank you all for, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I'll add, never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty, truth, compassion against social justice and inequality. Equality. So take on what you believe in and it will show you the rest.
Awesome. I just want to thank all our presenters for doing this session and taking the time out of your day. Conversations on DEI work are so important, and so I'm just so glad to have you guys with us. These conversations, as we all know, are going to continue for many years down the line, so we need to keep having them. So thank you so much for coming.